vyoma-samskrta-pathasalayaः Laghu Siddhanta Kaumudi द्वितीय भागे पञ्चविंशे वाग्वर्धिनी वर्गे सर्वेषां स्वागतम्। येनाक्षरसमाम्नायमधिगम्य महेश्वरात् कृत्स्नं व्याकरणं प्रोक्तं तस्मै पाणिनये नमः। वाक्यकारं वररुचिं भाष्यकारं पतञ्जलिं पाणिनिं सूत्रकारं च प्रणतोऽस्मि मुनित्रयं नत्वा सरस्वतीं देवीं शुद्धां गुण्यां करोम्यहं पाणिनीयप्रवेशाय लघुसिद्धान्तकौमुदीम्। अष्टाध्याय्याः आरम्भं कुर्मः। अद्य एकषष्टितमसूत्रात् 81तमसूत्रपर्यन्तं पाठयामि। ये अनुवक्तुमिच्छन्ति हस्तमुन्नयन्तु। चित्रा नारायणन्।
नमस्ते भगिनी।
नमस्ते। अचस्तास्वत्खल्यनिटो नित्यम्
आचस्तास्वत्खल्यनिटो नित्यम्
द्विवारम्
आस्वत्खल्यनिटो नित्यम्
उपदेशे त्वतः
उपदेशे त्वतः
ऋतो भारद्वाजस्य
ऋतो भारद्वाजस्य
बभूथा ततन्थ जगृम्भ ववर्थेति निगमे विभाषा सृजिदृशोः इडत्यर्तिव्ययतीनाम् वस्वेकाजाद्घसाम् विभाषा गमहनविदविषाम् सनिंस सनिवांसम् ऋद्धनोऽस्ये अंजेस्सिचि स्तुसुधूभ्यः परस्मैपदेषु यमरमणमातां सक्च स्मिपूङ्रञ्ज्वशां सनि किरश्च पञ्चभ्यः रुदादिभ्यः सार्वधातुके ईशस्ये ईडजनोर्ध्वे च लिङ्गः सलोपोऽनन्त्यस्य अतो येयः आतोङितः सम्यक्। धन्यवादः। अग्रे लघुकौमुदीं पठामः। उमा भगिनी।
अस्तु। The beginning is another one. This is not the starting, I think. Yujera samase is there.
Yujera samase, correct. I don't know why. Just a minute. Let me. You can read from this. I will
अस्तु अस्तु
itah eva pathitum shaknumah.
अस्तु आरम्भं करोमि
अत्र अस्ति.
युजेर समासे युजेः सर्वनामस्थाने नुं स्यात् असमासे सुलोपः संयोगान्तलोपः कुत्वेन नस्य नः युङ् अनुस्वारपरसवर्णौ युञ्जः युग्भ्यां चोः कुफु चवर्गस्य कवर्गः स्यात् झलीपदान्ते च सुयुक् सुयुग् सुयुजौ सुयुग्भ्यां खन् खञ्जौ खन्भ्याम् अनन्तरं व्रश्च भ्रश्च सृज मृज यज राज भ्राजच्छ शांशः झलीपदान्ते च जस्त्वचर्त्वे राट् राड् राजौ राजः राड्भ्याम् एवं विभ्राट् देवेट् विश्वसृट् परो व्रजेः शः पदान्ते परा उपपदे व्रजेः क्विप् स्यात् दीर्घश्च पदान्ते षत्वमपि परिव्राट् परिव्राजौ विश्वस्य वसुराटोः विश्वशब्दस्य दीर्घान्तादेशः स्यात् वसौ राट् शब्दे च परे विश्वाराट् विश्वाराड् विश्वराजौ विश्वाराड्भ्यां स्कोः संयोगाद्योरन्ते च पदान्ते झली च यः संयोगः तदाद्योः स्कोः लोपः भृट् सस्य श्चुत्वेन शः झलां झष् झषि इति शस्य जः बृद्धौ बृड्भ्यां
सम्यक् धन्यवादः.
धन्यवादः.
So we will quickly go through the main points of last week's lessons. So we are studying the Jakaranta Shabdas.
Hello?
Right? Jakaranta Shabdas. So in Jakarantas, last week we saw Ritvij Shabda, which is a Kvin Pratyayanta Shabda. By the Sutra, Ritvig Dadhrik Sragdig Ushnig Anchu Yujik Krunchancha. So it gets a special Pratyaya called Kvin, because of which it gets a Kutva as Antadesha. Everywhere, wherever there is Padanta, we have Kvin Pratyayasya Kuhu. Now he is taking another Shabda, which is Yuj, which is also mentioned in the same sutra, right? Ritvik, Dadhrik, Sragdig, Ushnik, Anchu, Yuji. And when talking about Yuji in the Laghu Kaumudi, he said, Yuji Krunchoho Kevalayoho. Kevalayoho means in the absence of any upasarga or upapada. When you have just the dhatu which is not preceded by anything, so it also qualifies for Kvin. Right? So it gets the Kvin Pratyaya. And there is a special sutra for Yuj which says Yujehe Asamase. Right? So this Yujehe Asamase gives Numagama Sarvanamasthane Pare. So wherever that is followed by Sarvanamasthana, there is a Nakara which is added. So we have Yuj becomes Yu-N-J. Then there is Supratyaya Lopa by Halgyabhyo Dirghatsutisya Praktam Hal, followed by Sanyogantasya Lopaha. So we are left with Yun, Nakara at the end. Now being a Kvinnanta Shabda, it gets Kvin Pratyayasya Kuhu. So you have Yung in both Prathama and Sambodhana Prathama. Yung. In other Sarvanamasthānas, there is just Numagama, which adds a Nakara, Yu-N-J, which is converted to Anuswara by Nashchapadantasya Jhali and then Parasavarna. So we have Yunjau, Yunjaha, Yunjam, Yunjau. So Nakara or that Nyakara, the Anunasika is heard only in Sarvanamasthana. It is not originally in the Shabda. It is derived from the Numagama. So from Shas, there is no Anunasika heard. It is just Varna Melana. In Padanta, now when we have Yuj and Bhyam, right? Here there is a clash between Kvin Pratyayasya Kuhu and chohkuhu. Because being chavarganta, it qualifies for chohkuhu, and being quin pratyayanta, it also qualifies for quin pratyayasya kuhu. What should we do here? We saw a similar case in Ritvij, but there the intervening sutra, the Vrashcha Bhrasja, also played a part, because Yaja Dhatu, Vrashcha Bhrasja, Srija, Mrija, Yaja Dhatu being listed in Vrashcha Bhrasja, there were 3 sutras in contention. Chohkuhu, which was the initial default or utsarga, was overridden by the apavada vrashcha bhrasja, which in turn had to be overridden using quin pratyayasya kuhu. Atayeva ritvik shabde sarvatrapi quin pratyayasya kuhu ityanenaiva kutvam. But yuj is not under the purview of vrashcha bhrasja. It is not listed there. Vrashcha, bhrasja, srija, mrija, yaja, raja, bhraja. Shakaranta, shakaranta. It does not qualify. So it is now a direct contention between chohkuhu and quin pratyayasya kuhu, since the latter is asiddha. Right? This is 30 and that is 62. So being asiddha, chohkuhu will prevail over quin pratyayasya kuhu. There is no phalabheda, right? It is a purely a theoretical, you have to choose one sutra. Which do you choose? Because of asiddhatva of quin pratyayasya kuhu, we do kutva using chohkuhu. So yugbhyam, yugbhihi, yukshu. So kutva, shratva, and then chartva. So then we have a shabda called suyuj, which is actually the typical jakaranta pullinga shabda. So what does it get? Sarvatrapi padante kutvam bhavati chohkuhu ityanena. This is actually, as we also saw in the last class, this is the typical jakaranta shabda. There is nothing special. So whether we take bhishaj or any other normal jakaranta shabda, that is what it will get. Sarvatrapi chohkuhu iti kutvam bhavati. Now, why is suyuj getting this? Because as we saw, both the sutras which we used in yuj, one is ritvik dadrik and the other is yujera samase. Both of them apply only when there is no samasa. Yuje hai asamase, it clearly says asamase. Ritvik dadrik also says kevalasya yuje hai. So no prefix or no upapada upasarga allowed. That is why when we add that su, right, it will neither get quin nor will it get num. So what does it get? It gets quip, which is the default pratyaya. So suyuj is the pratipadika, but we don't have quin pratyayasya kuhu. We don't have yuje rasamase. So suyuk, suyug, suyujau, suyujaha, suyujam, suyujau, suyujaha, suyuja, suyugbhyam, suyugbhihi ityadini rupani bhavanti. Right. Coming to another jakaranta shabda, which is a khanj shabda. Now here we had yuj, right? So yuj we get yunjav, yunjaha. Here also we get khanjav, khanjaha. But here we have to remember that the nakara, again here also it is a nakara of numagama. But numagama is not added in the pratipadika stage or in the subanta stage. It gets its numagama much earlier, right when it was a dhatu. So in dhatus, so when we move into dhatus after subantas, we will see that one of the common properties of dhatus is any dhatu which has a hrasva ikara getting it samya. Right? One of the most common example is probably the Vand dhatu, what we identify as Vand dhatu. Originally in the dhatu patha, it is given as Vadi, right? Vadi with the ikara being anunasika and therefore it by upadeshe janunasika it. So once ikara is deleted, we have Vad, but the moment hrasva ikara becomes it in a dhatu, we have a sutra called idito num dhatoh, which doesn't expect any other nimitta. As soon as the itsamyaka ikara is removed, we add a nakara there as an agama by iditonum dhatu. So here the actual dhatu becomes khanj, khanj. Then again we add the kvip pratyaya, which is fully deleted. So we have khanj as the pratipadika. As I mentioned, though while writing, because it is phonetically not possible to pronounce khanj, right? With samhita, khanj, it very naturally anuswara parasavarna happens. Therefore, it is written as khanj. But for prakriya, we must remember that it is nakara and jakara, right? So kha, n, j. Now here again in supratyaya there is संयोगान्तस्य लोपः. In supratyaya sarvatra padante संयोगान्तस्य लोपः इत्यनेन जकारस्य लोपः भवति. So we hear the nakara khan, khanbhyam, khanbhihi, khansu इत्यादि. अन्यत्र तु अनुस्वारः परसवर्णः भवति. खञ्जौ, खञ्जः इत्यादि रूपाणि भवन्ति. Right. Then we have one more shabda in Jakaranta. So he has they are all very, very minor variations, right? Jakarantas are actually very easy. It's only kutva or shatva is the major variation. And if there is a sanyoga, there will be sanyogantasya lopa. So Raj is where he introduces the other major variation for Jakarantas, which is the dhatus which qualify for shatva by the sutra Vrashchabhrasja, Srijamrija, Yajaraja, Bhraja, Chasham, Shaha. So this is a sutra which lists specific dhatus, 7 specific dhatus, and then 2 categories, chakarantas and shakarantas. So all of these, when followed by a jhal or at padanta, they get shakara as the adesha instead of the default kutva, right? Chohkuhu. So instead of chohkuhu, we get vrashchabhrasja, shatvam bhavati. So shakara again, since this sutra itself happens at padanta in the context of subantas, so you get shakara, immediately jhalam jashonte will also kick in because it is padanta and the shakara is converted to dakar. Right? So we get, we hear the dakara here. So rat, radbhyam, radbhihi. So shakara is not directly heard in subantas because everywhere we are doing it is also padanta, right? So we do hear the shakara. So why not then directly give a jastva, may be the question. But we will hear that shakara in kridantas, right? For example, you have yajadhatuhu. If you have akta pratyaya, it becomes ishta. There is a samprasarana, but there is a shakara there, ishta. And again, you have bhrishta and so on. So there are all the dhatus which are there. The shakara will be heard when there is no padanta. That is when we are operating with kridantas. In subanta rupas, there is always padanta and therefore the shakara will immediately get converted to dakara. So rat, rad, rajau, rajaha. Ajadi pratyaye kimapi karyam nasti. So all dhatus listed here. So he gives examples. Raja, bhraja is given by vibhrat, vibhrajau, vibhrajaha. Deva and yaj. Yakara gets samprasarana, so it becomes ij. So devet, devejau, devejaha. Then vishwa, srij, etc. Similarly, if you have other dhatus also, all of them will have a similar form. So padante shatvam jastvam bhavati. Tatra supratyये tu shatvam jastvam tatah dhudagamaha. Dassi dhut ityanena dhut bhavati, chartvam bhavati, ratsu, ratsu iti rupadvayam bhavati. Atraiva tena parivrat iti shabdah api svikriyate. So parivraj, vraj dhatu, when preceded by the upasarga pari, there is a special unadi sutra which gives a quip. It gives a dirgha for the dhatu. So parivraj becomes parivraj, and it also gives padante the shatvam bhavati, right? So the forms will be exactly the same. Parivrat, parivrajau, parivrajaha, parivraja, parivradbhyam, parivradbhihi. The sutra for the shatva is that unadi sutra, right? Para upapade tatra vrajehe shaha. That sutra is the one which will allow the shatva there. Then we saw another shabda called the Vishwaraj, where there was a special sutra, Vishwasya Vasuratoho, which gives a Purva Pada Dirgha. In Samasa, when Vishwa is followed by Vasu or Rat, Rat there is a reference to the Raj Shabda at Padanta. That is where the Shatva and Jastva has happened to derive a Dakara. So in such context, there is also a Dirgha on the Purva Pada. So we hear it as Vishwarat, Vishwaradbhyam, Vishwaradbhihi ityadi. Yatra padantatvam nasti, tatra Purvapada Dirghaha na bhavati. There is no Shatva, no Jashtva, no Dirgha. It is just Vishwaraj. Okay? Very special sutra operating only under specific conditions. As I said, it is very similar to what we did for the Tura Sah, right? So Turashat, Turasahu, Turasaha, where the Shatva happened only when the Hakara had been converted to the Dakara by the Dhatva and Jastva. It is a similar thing. So the last Shabda in Jakarantas which we saw was the Bhrisj Shabda. So derived from the Dhatu Bhrasj, which had Samprasarana to give Rikara. So it is a person who fries, right? A cook is there. He is called this. So here we have Sakara Jakara Sanyoga, where instead of the Sanyoganta Lopa, we have something called the Sanyogadi Lopa by the sutras Kos Sanyogadyor Antecha. So if there is a Sanyoga beginning with Sakara or Kakara, instead of deleting the second or the last letter, we delete the first letter of the Sanyoga. So the Sakara is gone. So you have Jakara. By the sutra Vrashcha Bhrasja, there is a Shatva followed by Jashtva. So we hear the Dakara. Bhrit, Bhridbhyam, Bhridbhihi, ityadi. Yatra tu ajadi pratyaye Sanyoganta lopaha, Sanyogadi lopaha na bhavati. Tatra sakarasya shchutvena shakaraha. By stoshchunashchuhu, sakara is first converted to shakara. Then by jhalam jashi, the shakara is converted to jakara. So we hear the double jakara there. Bhrijau bhrijjaha, bhrijjam ityadi bhavati. Okay. So I think that's it. If you have any questions. Okay. Meaning of Vibhrat in English, he who shines well, right? Visheshena bhrajate iti Vibhrat. So he who is very glorious or shining is called Vibhrat. There are a couple of questions about Vishwaraj, etc. We have this in Vagvardhini. So after somebody explains in Vagvardhini, I will maybe take up these. If they are not answered, I will answer these specific questions. So there is a question in both Rajan and Raj Shabda. We have the Rajra Deeptau Dhatu. In Rajan, we have Unadi Pratyaya on Raj Dhatu, right? So An. So there is a kanin pratyaya which becomes rajan nakaranta, whereas in raj, there is a kvip pratyaya which gives raj. So what is the difference between these two? No difference. It is just two words with the same meaning. We see this in a lot of cases, right? Say, for example, we have a rephanta shabda called var, right? Var, which is seen in, say, vardhi, etc. Varam, ityadishu. There is a rephanta shabda var. There is an ikaranta shabda vari. Both of them mean the same, water. So there are a lot of cases. We also discussed that day. Shwan is an akaranta shabda. Shwana is an akaranta shabda. Usually in such cases, they will be derived from the same dhatu, right? And they will have the same meaning. The difference is only that both endings, that is shabdas of both ways, are in use in the language. That is all. There is no other difference. Whether we say rat or whether I say Raja, it means the same. Of course, having more options is good for poets and others who are concerned about the number of letters and so on. In other words, it is just a feature of the language. So there are a lot of such cases where, and also the other thing is the pratyayas, in the same sense, they needn't be one. Whether I say, I mean, even in normal cases, pachakaha, pakta, all of them mean the same. In the same meaning that the karta of the action, we have many pratyayas. Right? So it all means the person who cooks. Why so many words? That is the variety of the language. So bhashayaha shabda sampattihi tatha asti. There is no difference. In this case, there is no difference in either meaning or anything else. So Raja, when you say Raja, how to identify whether it is the Prathamanta of Rajan or Tritiyanta of Raj? Context. See, that is why in Sanskrita, words are not meant to be isolated, right? It is always a context which matters. Whether you have Tritiya or Prathama is very evident when you are looking at it as a sentence, right? So, Raja Prajaha Rakshati is Prathama. Raja Prajaha Rakshitaha. If you use a Karmani, it is Tritiya. Right? So we need to focus on the sentence and the construction. Right? So there are a lot. I mean, even Rajaha, when I say, what is that Rajaha? If you have a this one, only Rajaha, of course, we know that there is no Rajaha. But if you have a Samasa, okay, say Maharajaha. So Maharajaha can, technically either be Ekavachana or Bahuvachana. Right? If I say it as Maharaj Shabda, Maharajaha would be Bahuvachana. Whereas if I say Maharaja Shabdaha, it would be Ekavachana. How do I know? Again, by context. So there are a lot of such things. Wherever there are multiple forms, similar forms in different vibhaktis or etc. Or there are multiple meanings. The only deciding factor is the context and the vivaksha, what is meant in that context. That is also what allows a lot of things such as, shlesha, alankara, and so on. Okay, there are a few other questions. Does the iditonum dhatoho apply to yujir yoge? No, it does not apply because ir, right? In dhatus which have the ir is given an itsamya together by a vartika called ira itsamya vachya. It is not an independent itsamya on ikara. It is not ikara getting itsamya separately and repha getting separately. It is ir as a samudayasya itsamya bhavati. So because of that, it is not considered idit. So dhatus which end in ir, like yujir, drishir, lot of them, they will not qualify for numagama. Is there a typo in Shashti Ekavachana of yuj? Yeah, there is something here, an extra matra which I will remain. It is yujaha, yujohu, yujam, yuji, yujohu, yukshu. There's another question. Kvin pratyayasya kuhu vrashtabhrasja iti sutrasya apavadaha bhavati va? Etayoho madhye tulya balamasti iti bhati. Right. So the question is, can we say that Kvin pratyayasya kuhu overrules vrashtabhrasja because they look like tulya bala? Kvin pratyayasya kuhu applies for words other than those which are in Ratvik Dadhak, right? Like say Yuj Shabda itself. So how do we do that is a question, right? So see, apavada, there are different ways, especially the badhakatva. The technical definition says yena naprapte yo vidhirarabhyate satasya badhako bhavati, right? So that is a very, very important definition of apavadatva, right? Or badhakatva. See, apavada and badhaka, they may be synonymous, they may not be. So badhaka means that which overrides, right? So yena naprapte yo vidhirarabhyate satasya badhako bhavati. So it is a paribhasha. What does it say? Na aprapte. There is a double negation there. Aprapta is not applying in a context. So na aprapte means definitely applying in a context, right? Double negation is always for emphasis. So yena na aprapte. So when a particular sutra, say we have a sutra a sutra is definitely applying in a particular context. So there, yaha vidhihi arabhyate. If there is a new vidhana called B, right, in a context where, say, in the absence of B, A would definitely have applied, right? Yena na aprapte, yaha vidhihi arabhyate. So if B is freshly stated, then B is an overruler of A. Saha tasya badhakaha bhavati. So B will overrule A. So if there is a context where A would definitely have applied with no doubt, with no caveats. If there is a new rule called B which is being started by Panini, it means that B will overrule A. Right? That is the simple thing. Again, Utsarga, Apavada, Badhaka is a very, very complicated structure in the Ashtadhyayi, but this rule is fairly simple, right? So even when we say Niravakashatvam, why many people get confused is that they are looking at the sutra as a whole, right? In simple cases, it may be a sutra as a whole is an apavada to another sutra, like we saw in Adgunaha and Vriddhirechi. The entire domain of Vriddhirechi is within Adgunaha. So it is very easy to say the sutra is Niravakasha and therefore it is an apavada. But in cases like this, Ritvik Dadhrik or Kvin Pratyayasya Kuhu, which applies to a wide range, we always feel that, okay, let it leave behind Yaja or Ritvij. It has other context to apply. So it is not a direct case of Niravakashatva. But now applying this principle, what does this principle say? Say we have a Shabda called Ritvij, right? So in Ritvij, what is A? In our context, A is the sutra, Vrashchabhrasja, Srija Mrija, Yaja Raja Bhraja Chasham, Shaha. And then B is the sutra, Kvin Pratyayasya Kuhu. Right. So if Kvin Pratyayasya Kuhu were not there, let's assume Kvin Pratyayasya Kuhu were not there, what would we have applied? So of course, there is also Choh Kuhu that is there. So we can also start with Choh Kuhu and do it between Choh Kuhu and Vrashchabhrasja, right? So you can even say A was say Choh Kuhu and then B was Vrashchabhrasja. and C was Quin Pratyayasya Kuhu. Right? Initially, say when you think, so in Ritvij, what would definitely have applied is Choh Kuhu. Right? Choh Kuhu ityasmin na aprapte. Choh Kuhu would certainly have applied because there is a Padanta Chavarga. So then there is a new rule which is being stated, which says Vrashcha Bhrasja Srijam Rija Yaja. Right? So it is an Apavada. So this Vrashcha Bhrasja will overrule Chohkuhu. Now, again, when between B and C, when we consider, if Quin Pratyayasya Kuhu weren't there, is there something which would definitely have applied? It is Vrashcha Bhrasja, because Yajadhatu is called there and Ritvija has Yajadhatu. So Vrashcha Bhrasja ityetasmin sutre na prapte. Na prapte is again in Sanskrit it says avashya prapte. When Vrashcha Bhrasja would definitely have applied, giving a sutra Quin Pratyayasya Kuhu, which is applicable only for a specific case of Yajadhatu. Again, it is not. There are two ways. The simple way is Yajadhatu is a wider domain, which is very obvious. It applies to all samasas of Yajadhatu, whether they are Quin, Quip, etc. Whereas Quin Pratyaya, Yajadhatu having Quin Pratyaya is only Ritvij Shabda, which is a smaller domain. Right? That is a one way of looking at it. The other way is in Ritvij Shabda. When Vrashcha Bhrasja was already definitely operating, a new sutra which is coming into place specifically for Ritvij, right, will override Vrashcha Bhrasja. That is the intention in saying that Quin Pratyayasya Kuhu is needed, right? You can anyway not apply Choh Kuhu at all, right? If you say Quin Pratyayasya Kuhu is not there, you would definitely have to apply Vrashcha Bhrasja. Where is what is preventing Vrashcha Bhrasja from preventing it? Right. Vrashcha Bhrasja is a very clear apavada to Choh Kuhu. So if you take Quin Pratyayasya Kuhu out of it, you would definitely have to apply Shatva. And you get something like Ritvid Bhyam. So as I said, Vishwaraj, I am leaving for later. There is a question, is Ashish Sakaranta or Shakaranta? It is originally Sakara. Shas, which becomes Shis. Sakara, which is getting Shatva. Right? So it is Ashish. It is Sakara. That is why we have the Rutva, etc. in, say, Ashir Bhyam, etc. The Rutva is by Sasajushoru. When we go by Prakriya, it is Sakara. But because, again, like we did in Anuswara Parasavarna in Khanj, Ashushu, the moment you have Ikara, the Shatva happens and therefore Shakara is told. Originally, it's a Sakara. Okay, there is a nice question. There is a gadget called air fryer, which is used to fry things by reducing the amount of oil. Yeah. So can the device be called Vatabhrit is a question. Yes, I think so. I mean, it sounds pretty. This Vatena Bhrijati, right? That which fries with air using this one. So we have Kartrakarane Krita. There is a samasa which says a Karta or Karana with a Kridanta. The bridge is a Kridanta, so it is possible to have that form. Quin Pratyayasya Kuhu, can we also be told that Niravakashatvat it applies? That is what you cannot say Niravakashatva for the whole sutra because it has lot of Quinnantas where it applies. That was the intention of the question. You cannot say the sutra is Niravakasha because it has other Quinnantas. It's okay. Why? There is no necessity that it should apply in all Quinnantas. It is generally applying across many sutras. So why not take it as Tulyabala was the question. So that was why the answer. Correct. For Ritvij, it is Niravakasha. But then again, why should it be Savakasha for everything? Whenever we say Niravakasha, the idea is that the sutra is not finding the purpose of its existence. Right? So where for Quin Pratyayasya Kuhu, we have it for other Quinnantas. That is the moola of that question. Okay. There's one which is not directly relevant, but in an old lesson you use a word paryudasat. Explicitly stated is the meaning. No. Paryudasa is actually pratishedha, nai. Right? Whenever maybe I will take it in some Jnanavardhini session. I don't remember if I did it. Whenever there is a nai, that is a usage of negation, na, right? So there are two ways in which we are using it. That is, the nai can be related to a kriya, right? Say na karoti, na bhavati, etc. So saying, for example, Ashvaha na dhavati is not the same as saying Anashvaha dhavati, right? Ashvaha na dhavati. A horse does not run, right? There the negation is on the kriya. The substance Ashva is there. It does not run. So what we are negating is a kriya. Whereas if I say Anashvaha dhavati, na ashvaha anashvaha, something other than a horse is running. So there the negation is not on the kriya, it is on that particle, which is the dravya, right? So there are two applications of that nai. We call it as paryudasa and prasajya pratishedha. Prasajya pratishedhastu kriyaya saha yatra nai. Yatra kriyayaha pratishedha bhavati. Pratishedha is negation. When negation is of a kriya, that is called prasajya pratishedha. Paryudasaha savigneyaha yatra uttarapadena nai. When there is a samasa and there is a negation of the uttarapada, right? In a samasa, wherever we do, right? Like adharmaha, ityadi, all cases. So when the association of nai is with an uttarapada, it is technically called paryudasa. Whereas the negation is that of a kriya, it is called prasajya pratishedha. There is a difference between, paryudasa and prasajya pratishedha. Especially in Shastra, they use it often. In Vyakarana, one of the popular cases is the anachicha. Okay. In anachicha, we say that it is not paryudasa. It is prasajya pratishedha, but that is a different context. We will maybe go into the details some other time. But that is paryudasa. Okay. I think we will move ahead. I've answered all questions except the one about Vishwaraj, which will come back after the Vagvardhini. Okay. So now moving into the Vagvardhini. Sorry. Okay. युजि शब्दे सूत्रद्वयेन कुत्वम् इति प्रथमः प्रश्नः. ये वक्तुमिच्छन्ति हस्तम्. श्रीनाथ महोदय.
नमस्ते महोदय. श्रूयते वा?
श्रूयते.
युजि शब्दे सूत्रद्वयेन कुत्वम्. युजिर्योगे इति धातोः सर्वापहारिक पित्प्रत्यये कृते युजि इति क्विन्नन्त जकारान्त प्रातिपदिकं सिद्ध्यति. अत्र कुत्व विधायक प्रथम सूत्रमस्ति क्विन् प्रत्ययस्य कुः इति. युजेर् असमासे इति समासरहित युज् शब्दस्य सर्वनाम स्थाने अंगस्य निमागमः भवति. अत्र प्रथमैकवचने युज् सु युजेर् असमासे इति निमागमः युञ्ज् सु हल्ङ्याभ्यो इति सूत्रेण सुलोपः. युन् इति स्थिते संयोगान्तस्य लोपः इति जकार लोपः भवति. युन् इति स्थिते अत्र क्विन् प्रत्ययस्य कुः इति कुत्व युङ् इति रूपं सिद्ध्यति. अन्य चतुर्सर्वनाम स्थानेषु अनुस्वार परसवर्णत्वात् कुत्व प्रसक्तिः नास्ति. अधुना कुत्व विधायक द्वितीय सूत्रमस्ति चोः कुः। अत्र इदं सूत्रं क्विन् प्रत्ययस्य कुः इति सूत्राय असिद्धमस्ति। तृतीय चतुर्थी पंचमी द्विवचन बहुवचनेषु सप्तमी बहुवचनेषु बहुवचने च पदसंज्ञा अस्ति। प्रत्ययाः झलादयः। तृतीय द्विवचने युज् प्रातिपदिकात् भ्याम् इति प्रत्यये परे जकारस्य चोः कुः इति कुत्वं भवति। वर्ग तृतीय गकारादेशः भवति युग्भ्याम् इति रूपम्। युग्भिः युग्भ्यः युक्षु इति रूपाणि अपि सिद्ध्यन्ति। समासे तु क्विप् प्रत्ययः युज्यते, अतः क्विन् प्रत्ययस्य कुः सूत्रस्य प्रसक्तिरेव नास्ति।
सम्यक् उक्तं। किं सूत्रं प्रति किम् असिद्धम्?
क्विन् प्रत्ययस्य कुः इति सूत्रं प्रति चोः कुः इति असिद्धम्।
न चोः कुः इति सूत्रं प्रति क्विन् प्रत्ययस्य कुः इति असिद्धम्, यतोहि तदेव परसूत्रम्। सम्यक्, अन्यत् सर्वं सम्यगेव प्रतिपादितं। तत्र युज् इति क्विन् प्रत्ययान्तः शब्दः, अतः तत्र सु प्रत्यये क्विन् प्रत्ययस्य कुः इत्यस्य एव प्रसक्तिः। किमर्थम्? अतः चकारान्तत्वं नास्ति। युन् इति नुमागमस्य नकारः अस्ति, तत्र क्विन् प्रत्ययस्य कुः इत्यनेनैव कुत्वं भवति। यत्र तु भ्यामादिषु उभयोः प्रसक्तिः अस्ति, तत्र क्विन् प्रत्ययस्य कुः इत्यस्य असिद्धत्वात् चोः कुः इत्यनेन कुत्वं भवति इति उत्तरम्। अत्र सुधा भगिनी अन्येन क्रमेण उत्तरं चिन्तितम् इति वदति, शृणुमः।
आं महोदय, मम दृष्ट्या मम उत्तरम् उचितमस्ति वा न वा शुद्धमस्ति वा न जानामि। युज् इति शब्द द्वाभ्यां धातोः निष्पादितुं शक्यते। युजिर् योगे रुदादिगणे अस्ति सकर्मक धातु। अस्मात् धातोः उत्पन्न युनक्ति इति योगी अस्मिन् अर्थे युज् इति जकारान्त प्रातिपदिकं भवति। युज् समाधौ इति दिवादिगणे अस्ति अकर्मक धातु, अस्य प्रातिपदिकमपि युज् भवति। सो यदा युजिर् योगे अस्मात् धातोः उत्पन्न युज् अस्ति, तत्र क्विन् प्रत्ययस्य योजनं ऋत्विक् ददृक् स्रग्दिग् इति सूत्रेण भवति। अनेन केवलादेव युज् धातोः क्विन् प्रत्यय उपपदं विना युज् धातोः क्विन् प्रत्यय भवति इति उक्तमस्ति। प्रक्रियायां पश्यामश्चेत् प्रथमैकवचने युज् प्लस् सु, तत्र युजेर समासे इति नुमागमः मिदचोन्त्यात् परः, अनेन उकारात् परः अयं नुमागमः। तदनन्तरं युन् प्लस् ज हल्न्याभ्यो दीर्घाच्युतस्य प्रत्ययः हल् सुलोप। युन् पदसंज्ञा अस्ति, संयोगान्तस्य लोपः, अतः अन्तिम जकारस्य लोपः। तदनन्तरं तत्र क्विन् प्रत्ययस्य कुः अनेन कुत्वं पदान्तिकवर्गादेशः नकारस्य अङ्गकारादेशः। यत्र युज् समाधौ अस्मात् उत्पन्न युज् प्रातिपदिकमस्ति, तत्र क्विन् प्रत्यय तु न युज्यते, क्विन् प्रत्यय न भवति। अत्र क्विप् प्रत्यय एवं भवति। सत्सु द्विषद्रुह दुह युज विद भिद छिद जिनि राजाम् उपसर्गे क्विप्, अनेन क्विप् प्रत्ययस्य योजनं भवति। अतः प्रथमैकवचन प्रक्रियायां कुत्वं क्विन् प्रत्ययस्य कुः अनेन भवितुं न अर्हति। अतः त्रिपाद्यां पूर्वमेव उक्तं सूत्रमस्ति चोः कुः इत्यनेन पदान्ते विद्यमानस्य जकारस्य कवर्गादेशः भवति इति मया लिखितमस्ति।
तत्तु तदेव तृतीयप्रश्नस्य स एव आशयः आसीत्। यत्र युजसमाधौ इति। आदौ तु अस्माभिः तु लघुकौमुद्याम् एक एव शब्दः स्वीक्रियते, युजि युजिर्योगे इत्यस्मात् निष्पन्नः एक एव शब्दः स्वीकृतः, किन्तु तत्रापि सूत्रद्वयेन कुत्वं भवति। सुप्रत्यये क्विन् प्रत्ययस्य कुः इत्यनेन भवति, भ्यामादिषु चोः कुः इत्यनेन कुत्वं भवति। अतः तस्य प्रश्नस्य उत्तरं तु तत् यथा तेन प्रतिपादितम्। इदानीम् अत्र भवत्या यदुक्तं तत्सर्वं युक्तं। तत्र किमस्ति, ऋत्विक् दधृग् इत्यत्र अञ्चु युजि इत्यत्र यः इकारः सः युजिर् इत्यत्र इकार इर् अनुबन्धः यत्र अस्ति तस्यैव भवति। अतः क्विन् भवति, युज समाधौ इत्यस्य तु क्विप् भवति इति एकः भेदः। अपरः कः भेदः नयोः?
नुमागमस्य भेदः अस्ति। अतः प्रथमैकवचने युजिर् धातोः युङ् इति अन्तिमं रूपम् अस्ति। युज् समाधौ अस्य युग् युक् इति रूपं भवति।
एकत्रैव भेदः वा?
नुमागमः नास्ति खलु?
न, तदेव एकस्मिन्नेव रूपे भेदः वा अन्येषु रूपेषु अपि भेदः भवति वा?
तद् मया न लिखितम्। उदाहरणे एकमेव रूपं मया
अन्यत्रापि सर्वनामस्थाने तत्र युङ् युञ्जौ युञ्जः इति भवति, अत्र तु युजौ युजः इत्येव भवति।
सत्यं सत्यं सत्यं।
सर्वनामस्थाने एव भेदः। शसः आरभ्य उभयं समानं। युजः युजा युग्भ्यां युग्भिः, युजे युग्भ्यां युग्भः इत्यादि सर्वं समानं। सर्वनामस्थाने एव भेदः। अस्य युजिर् योगे इत्यस्मान् निष्पन्नः यः युज् शब्दः तस्य युङ् युञ्जौ युञ्जः युञ्जं युञ्जौ इति रूपाणि, युज समाधौ इत्यस्मान् निष्पन्नस्य युक् युजौ युजः युजं युजौ इति रूपाणि। सम्यक्, उभयमपि दत्तमेव आसीत्। तत्र स एव भेदः। ऋत्विग् दधृग् इत्यत्र युजे रसमासे उभयत्रापि युजि इत्यनेन युजिर्योगे इति धातुः एव गृह्यते इति व्याख्याकृद्भिः उच्यते। तेन तत्र किं भवति, ऋत्विग् दधृक् इत्यनेन क्विन् भवति। क्विन् प्रत्ययः अस्ति चेत् क्विन् प्रत्ययस्य कुः इति कुत्वं भवति। सर्वनामस्थाने युजे रसमासे इति नुमागमः। इदं तु युजिर्योगे इति धातुः। यः युज समाधौ समासेन, एतत्तु अनवधानात् मया समासे इति लिखितमस्ति। युज समाधौ इति यः धातुः तस्य क्विप् प्रत्ययः भवति। अतः कुत्वस्य प्रसक्तिः नास्ति, नुमागमः अपि न भवति। सर्वत्रापि चोः कुः इति कुत्वं सुयुज् शब्दः यथा सुयुक् सुयुक् सुयुजौ सुयुजः एवं युक् युजौ युजः इत्येव भवति। Okay, so both questions we have dealt with. So we will come back to the second one. Vishwasya vasuratoho. Kumar Shankar महोदय।
नमस्ते भगिनी, श्रूयते वा?
श्रूयते।
विश्वस्य वसुराटोः अस्य सूत्रस्य अर्थः अस्ति विश्वशब्दस्य दीर्घ अन्त आदेशः स्यात् वसौ राट् शब्दे परे इति। उदाहरणार्थं विश्वशब्दपूर्वक राट् शब्दात् प्रथमा एकवचनस्य सुप्रत्यये परे उपदेशे अजनुनासिक इति हल्ङ्याभ्यो दीर्घात् सुतिस्य पृक्तं हल् इति द्वयोः सूत्रयोः प्रवर्तनात् विश्वराट् इति प्राप्ते। प्रत्ययलोपे प्रत्ययलक्षणं सुप्तिङन्तं पदं व्रश्च भ्रश्च इत्यादयः शः इति त्रयाणां सूत्राणां प्रवर्तनात् पदान्ते स्थितस्य टकारस्य शकारादेशो भूत्वा विश्वराश् इति प्राप्ते।
जकारः नास्ति, तत्र जकारः अस्ति किल, विश्वराज इति जकारान्तं प्रातिपदिकं, जकारस्य शकारादेशः.
सारी यकारस्य शकारादेशो भूत्वा विश्वराश् इति प्राप्ते जलां जशोन्ते ऋतुरसानां मूर्धा इति द्वयोः सूत्रयोः प्रवर्तनात् अन्ते स्थितस्य शकारस्य डकारादेशो भूत्वा विश्वराड् इति प्राप्ते विश्वस्य वसुराटोः इति सूत्रेण विश्वशब्दस्य दीर्घ अन्तादेशो भूत्वा विश्वाराड् इति प्राप्ते वावसाने इति सूत्रेण अन्तिम डकारस्य विकल्पेन टकारादेशो भूत्वा विश्वाराट् इति वैकल्पिकं रूपम् अपि सिद्ध्यति.
अत्र तावदेव लिखितमस्ति वा? सूत्रस्य कः विशेषः?
नो ऐ डिडंट राइट.
चिन्ता नास्ति. अन्ये केपि सूत्रस्य विशेषविषये वदन्ति? महालक्ष्मी भगिनी.
नमस्ते भगिनी. सूत्रे द्वे पदे स्तः विश्वस्य इति षष्ठी प्रथमान्तं वसुराटोः इति सप्तमी द्विवचनान्तं वसुश्च राच्च तौ वसुराटौ तयोः इति वसुराटोः इति कर्मधारय समासः दीर्घः इत्यनुवर्तते. उत्तरपदे संहितायाम् इत्याधिकारे अस्ति. विधिसूत्रमस्ति. पूर्वपदस्य दीर्घविधानं भवति. विश्व इति शब्दस्य वसु शब्दे परे राट् शब्दे च परे दीर्घः अन्तादेशः स्यात् इति सूत्रार्थः. विश्वावसुः विश्वाराट् इति पूर्वपदस्य दीर्घः भवति. राड् इति पदान्त उपलक्षणार्थम् इति सिद्धान्तकौमुद्याम् एका पङ्क्तिः अस्ति. राड् इति पदान्त सूत्रे राड् इति उच्यते. महर्षि पाणिनिना वसु राजोः इति नोक्तम्. यदि राजोः इति उक्तं स्यात् तर्हि विश्वराज इति समासे कृते एव तत्र दीर्घः भवति. तदा विश्वराज इति प्रातिपदिकमेव स्वीकर्तुं शक्यते. किन्तु सूत्रे वसुराटोः इति अस्ति. राज इत्यत्र पदान्ते वश्चादिना षत्वं ततः जलाञ्जशोन्ते इति जत्वे कृते राड् इति रूपं सिद्ध्यति. यत्र राड् इति भवति तत्रैव पूर्वपदस्य दीर्घः. अतः विश्वराट् विश्वराजौ विश्वाराट् विश्वराजौ विश्वराजः इति भवति. पदान्ते एव राड् इत्यस्मिन् पदे विश्वशब्दस्य दीर्घः भवति इत्यर्थः. तदेव उच्यते राड् इति पदान्त उपलक्षणार्थम् इति. इदानीम् अन्यः प्रश्नः भवति. सूत्रे राटोः इति अस्ति. राट् इति षत्वं जश्वं चत्वं कृते एव भवति. तर्हि यत्र चत्वं भवति तत्रैव दीर्घः वा इति प्रश्ने चत्वम् अविवक्षितम् इति कौमुद्यां दत्तमस्ति. तत्र चत्वम् एव भवेत् इति न. राड् इति पदान्तत्वम् अस्ति. षत्वं जश्त्वम् अपि निश्चयेन भवति. चर्त्वं भवति वा न वा इति न. यत्र पदान्ते राड् इति सिद्ध्यति तत्र अयं दीर्घः भवति इत्येव. अतः विश्वराज स इत्यत्र प्रथमैकवचने हल्न्यादिना सुलोपः वृश्चादिना षत्वं जलां जशोन्ते इति जष्ट्वे तदनन्तरं विश्वस्य वसुराटोः इति दीर्घे कृते विश्वराट् इति रूपं सिद्ध्यति. वावसाने इत्यनेन
विश्वाराड्
विश्वाराड् दीर्घ विश्वाराड् इति सिद्ध्यति. वावसाने इत्यनेन विकल्पेन चत्वं भवति. अतः विश्वाराट् इति रूपद्वयं सिद्ध्यति. अत्र प्रश्नः भवेत्. वृश्चादि सूत्रं जलां जशोन्ते इति सूत्रद्वयमपि त्रिपाद्याम् अस्ति. ततः परं कथं सपादसप्ताध्याय्यां स्थिते विश्वस्य वसुराटोः इति सूत्रस्य प्रवृत्तिः इति. तत्र आश्रयात् सिद्धत्वम् अत्र स्वीक्रियते. अर्थात् यदि षत्व जष्ट्वयोः असिद्धत्वं स्यात् तर्हि राड् इति रूपस्य सम्भवः एव नास्ति। अतः यत्र यत्र पदान्तत्वम् अस्ति तत्र षत्वं जष्ट्वं पूर्वपददीर्घः कृते विश्वराट् विश्वराड् विश्वाराट् विश्वाराड् विश्वाराढ्यां विश्वाराड्भिः विश्वाराड्यः विश्वाराट्सु विश्वाराट्सु इति रूपाणि सिद्ध्यन्ति। अन्यत्र तु ह्रस्वः एव श्रूयते, पूर्वपदस्य दीर्घः न भवति। तावदेव।
सम्यक्, बहु सम्यक् प्रतिपादितं। सर्वे अंशाः साधु उक्ताः. So there are basically, yes, 2 or 3 questions to be answered. So those were the questions asked by some people. So I'll just repeat it in English, though she has actually explained very well. So the first question is, when will this sutra apply? It says Vishwa gets a dirgha when it is the Purvapada. So there is an Uttarapada. What is the Uttarapada? One is Vasu and the other is Rat. Right? Now Vasu is very evident. So Vishwa Vasu is itself the Pratipadika. So everywhere we get the dirgha. Vishwa Vasuhu, Vishwa Vasu, Vishwa Vasavaha, etc. Now when we come to Rat, there is no original direct shabda called Rat. Okay? We don't have something directly called Rat, where you will get a Pratipadika called Vishwarat. Where is the possibility of getting Rat? The only way, the sutra says Vasu Ratoho. As she said, if Panini had said Vasu Rajoho, it wouldn't have been a problem at all. Directly when you have Vishwa and Raj, we could have applied the Dirgha. But Panini has specifically mentioned Rat. Now, how do we get Rat at all? Right? The only way to derive Rat in using the current this ones is you have Raj. Right? So Raj becomes Rash by Prashchabhrasja, Srijamrija, Yajaraja, Bhraja, Chasham, Shaha. Then Rash becomes Rad by Jhalam Jashonte. This Rad becomes Rad by Kharicha. Right? This is how we get the Rat. Right? Now, all these karyas are happening in the Tripadi. Right? So Raj becoming Rash is Vrashchabhrasja, which is 8 to 36. Then Rash becoming Rad is 8 to 39. Then Rad becoming Rat will be 8, 4, 55. Right? Everything is in the Tripadi and therefore Asiddha. So this Vishwasya Vasuratoho is in the Sapara Saptadhyayi. So if we go by the normal Asiddhatva, there is no Rat at all. Right? So Vishwa Shabda will never be followed by Rat, because it does not know any Rat in the Sapara Saptadhyayi. So you will never be able to apply this. You can only apply this to Vasu. You will not be able to apply it to Rat. Right? So that is why we say Ashrayat Siddhatvam. Since the sutra refers to Rat, it should be able to see till where you are getting Rat. Right? So you have to open the curtain and say, okay, there is a process where there is a possibility of a Rat. So you can apply there. Okay? That is what we call Ashrayat Siddhatvam. Because the application of the sutra depends on Rat, the derivation of Rat should be visible. Right? You cannot say Rat is Asiddha and therefore the sutra will not apply at all for the case of Rat. So that is the question about the Asiddhatva. So there is no Asiddhatva. Now Vishwa Shabda in the Purvapada, it is watching the Uttarapada and it sees that there is a process when it becomes Rat. The moment you have Rat, it says, okay, I have a Rat. So this sutra can apply and therefore it converts Vishwa to Dirgha. So we get Vishwarat. Right? So getting Vishwarat is not a problem. Just by overruling the Asiddhatva, you can get Vishwarat. Now, can I have Vishwarad or not? Because the sutra says Vasu Ratoho, it is saying the takara. Can it apply only when all these have applied? That is Shatva, Jashtva, and Chartva is the question. That is why Kaumudi says Chartvam Avivakshitam. So Panini is not insistent on there being a Chartva. If that was the case, only in two places you could have got Dirgha. One is in Supratyaya, in the form where you have Vavasane. The second is in Saptami Bahuvachana, where you have Kharicha. So Vishwaratatsu, Vishwaratsu. You will not get it in, say, Vishwarad in Supratyaya or Bhyam, Bhis, Bhyas, Vishwarad, Bhyam. There all you cannot get a Dirgha because you don't have a Chartva. Based on Prayoga, Bhattoji Dikshita says, Chartvam Avivakshitam. We are not particular about Chartva applying when I say Rat. What is more important is Padanta. Padanta Upalakshanartham. Wherever there is Padanta. So by Ratoho, Panini intends a Padanta. If it is Padanta, Shatva will apply, Jashtva will apply, Chartva may apply, may not apply, it does not matter. As long as there is Padanta, that is the Raj is at Padanta, facilitating the for application of Shatva and Jashtva. So this Dirgha will apply. Therefore, wherever we have applied Vrashchabhrasja and Jhalam Jashonte, we can also apply Vishwasya Vasuratoho to make the Dirgha. That is all. So we have Vishwarad, Vishwarat, Vishwarajo, Vishwaraja. Okay, so we will go ahead now. So there was a Jnanavardhini topic which we had started last week. So we will see how Bhattoji Dikshita resolves it in the Siddhanta Kaumudi this week. So it is just, as I said again, if you find difficulty in understanding Jnanavardhini, don't worry, right? This is not something which is taken at this level. The only intention of introducing it is to basically give the samskara of some of the technical terms and higher reasoning which is in the Shastra. You will get there sometime. It is absolutely okay to ignore it if you find it very difficult. No need to get tensed or worried about it. Because these are all, that is exactly why Laghu Kaumudi does not take it. That is for Paniniya Pravesha. If you are studying for the first time, it is okay if you don't understand it. Just listen with an open mind and try to register some of the terms. That is how we have learned some of the terms like Jnapaka, etc. So similarly, we will try to understand a term called Yoga Vibhaga using this. Listen to it once or twice or thrice. Now it will not be asked for any exam or anything. You can even let it go. Please have that, that Shraddha is very important for Shastra Dhyana. That you have to come back again and again, and at some point, the things will clear. Okay. Any Shastra is like that. First time, there are many things which are vague. Actually, if we are lucky, first time we don't even realize that we are missing many things. It's only when we come back second and third time that we realize, oh, I hadn't realized this last time. Okay. But many times we realize that we are not getting it. That is also okay. It is not like a normal language lesson where you are expected to understand and master something the first time. It will take time. It will take multiple hearings from, say, that even doesn't mean if you listen to my own explanation 10 times in the same day, also you may not understand. It needs that time gap also sometimes. You have to go ahead, learn something else, and then suddenly this will become clear. Okay. Or you listen to somebody else explaining in a different way, and suddenly this will become clear. All this is a normal process of Shastra Dhyana. So don't be discouraged or don't develop a fear for the Shastra just because you are unable to appreciate some of the nuances. One of the objectives of Shastradhyayana is to refine our thinking. Whether or not we agree with it is totally different, right? As I say today, it is possible to agree with Bhattoji Dikshita or to not agree. That is different. We have to try to understand the points that they are trying to make. What is the Vyakhyana saying? At a much later stage, you may be able to develop your own judgment of those. First, don't try to judge. Just try to absorb what is there to whatever extent possible. So now, to remind what we were discussing, Vritraghanaha, Vritrahan Shabdaha, there is Repha in the Purvapada and there is Nakara in the Uttarapada. Right? In Shas Pratyaya, we have deleted the Akara by Alloponaha. Then we have converted Hakara to Ghakara by Hohanterninneshu. So you have Vritra, Gh, N, As. Now the letters between Repha and Nakara are among Atkupvangnum. Therefore, it may be possible to have an Atva. The first answer is, of course, that it is not Samana Pada. Right? Vritra, Repha is in Purva Pada and the Nakara is in Uttara Pada. But again, in say Vritrahanau, Vritrahanaha, we saw that even in that case, Natva was allowed by the Sutra Ekajuttarapadenaha. If the Nimitta is in Purvapada, if the Uttarapada is Ekach, and if the Nakara belongs to Pratipadikanta, Num or Vibhakti, then by Ekajuttarapadenaha we can have Natva. That is what we apply in Vritrahanau, Vritrahanaha. Here, once we have removed the Akara, there is no Ekach. There is no Ach in the Uttarapada part of it. Right? So we have only two Hal letters, Gha and Na. There is no Ach, and therefore Ekajuttarapadenaha does not apply. Laghu Kaumudi stops there. He doesn't go further. Right? He just says Vritraghanaha and moves ahead. But the matter is not so simple. Why? Before Ekajuttarapadenaha, we have a sutra which says Pratipadikanta Num Vibhaktishucha. This has two conditions. Ekajuttarapadenaha had three. Nimitta in Purvapada, Nakara belonging to Pratipadikanta Num Vibhakti, and Uttarapada being Ekach. Now this Uttarapada being Ekach is not there for Pratipadikanta Num Vibhakti Shucha. It just has two conditions. Purvapadasthan nimittat parasya, Pratipadikanta Num Vibhaktishu sthitasya nakarasya natvam bhavati. Which is there in Vritraghna as. Because Nakara is Pratipadikanta and the Nimitta is in Purvapada. Because of this, by the Sutra Pratipadikanta Num Vibhakti Shucha, there is optional Natva, is the opinion of Madhava, who has composed the Madhaviya Dhatu Vritti. So he says, Bhasamnyayam allope, Uttarapadam anachkam iti, Ekajuttarapadatva abhavat, Pratipadikanta Num Vibhakti Shucha iti vikalpaha bhavati, Vritraghnaha Vritraghnaha iti Madhaviya Dhatu Vrittau uchyate. So according to Madhava, there should be two valid forms. One is Vritraghnaha, the other is Vritraghnaha. But Siddhanta Kaumudi does not agree. He says there is only one form, there is no Natva here. Pratipadikanta Num Vibhakti Shucha will not apply. How? How can we justify that this does not apply? Because the conditions are being satisfied. Which means there should be something else which is preventing the Natva. What is it is the question. So for this, we need to understand another sutra, which comes a bit later, 8.4.22, in the same Natva Prakarana, which says, Hante Rathpurvasya. Okay. Hantehe Athpurvasya is the Cheda. There is the Anuvritti of Upasargat. There is Nonaha. All the other general conditions for Natva are there. So what does this sutra mean? Upasargasthat nimittat parasya. When we just look directly at hante rathpurvasya, what is it saying? Hantehe. Hantehe means hanudhatoho. Hanudhatu upasargat. That is anuvritti. So when there is a nimitta in the upasarga, what do we mean by nimitta in the upasarga? The upasarga has repha. You have pra, you have para, you have pari, prat. Okay, all those upasargas have repha. So now upasarga sthat nimittat parasya hantehe natvam syad. Hanudhatu, the nakara of hanudhatu gets natva atpurvasya. When the nakara is preceded by hrasva akara. At nama hrasva akaraha purvaha yasya saha atpurvaha. So the nakara of han is preceded by hrasva akara. So in such contexts, there is natva, is what is declared by hante rathpurvasya. So what is the example? This is what is given in the Kashika. So he gives an example, prahanyat. Anadhatu, and then you have the vidhiling lakara, hanyat. When there is an upasarga pra, there is a repha in the upasarga. Hanudhatoho nakaraha. And the nakara is preceded by akara. And therefore there is natva. Prahanyat. There is natva. Atpurvasya kim. Why specifically say atpurvasya? If that akara is not there. Example he gives is pragnanti. Hanti hataha ghnanti. In ghnanti, han anti, there is a sutra which removes the akara. Like just like we saw alloponaha here, there is a sutra in Kriyapada where the akara is deleted. So you have prahn anti. Just like we saw in Vritragraha, there is allopa, and then hohanter nineshu, there is a kutva. Now here, there is an upasarga nimitta, there is hantehe nakaraha, but this nakara is not preceded by hrasva akara. It is not atpurva, and therefore there is no natva. It doesn't become praghnanti, it remains as praghnanti. That is what this sutra says. Hante rathpurvasya. So you have an example where natva will happen, and you have an example where natva will not happen. Right? This is the plain sutra taken together. This does not solve our problem because we don't have the upasarga sthat nimittat. Right? We don't have anything to do with upasarga. Our problem is with vritra han. The repha is not in an upasarga. So in this context, Bhattoji Dikshita resorts to a technique which is called yoga vibhaga. Right? Yoga vibhaga is a term which is used in the Mahabhashya itself multiple times. Okay? Yoga here means a sutra. Yoga vibhagaha means sutrasya vibhagaha, splitting a sutra. See, the idea is the sutra patha is in Samhita. Samhita means Panini, we don't know if he wrote down the sutras or not. In the oral form, when we are reciting the sutras, it is not like we do today, right? Like Vriddhiradaich, Adeng Gunaha, Iko Guna Vriddhi, Nadhatu Lopa Ardhadhatuke. What are we doing? We are specifically splitting the narration at points. But there is something called Samhita Patha, where there is no split. Vriddhiradai jadeng guna iko guna vriddhi nadhatu lopa ardhadhatu keng iti cha didhi ve vetam. So it goes in a series. And there is no break. That is how we do Veda Parayana. That is how we do all others. Samhita Patha. It is together. Now, where is the sutra break is a problem, right? That problem was there right at the time of Mahabhashya, because it is oral tradition. When you are reciting orally, where are the proper split points? So the sutra number, etc. are all today. You have like neatly typeset books where you have one sutra per line where there is a split is different. when you are communicating it orally, nobody said 111 vruddhiradeich, 112 adeng gunaha. It was just a series of words, right? So where do you split it? Is it is vruddhihi is one sutra, adej adeng is one sutra? We don't know, right? How was that split done? Was with the vritti granthas. Right? You should remember how the Vyakarana was developed and handed down. Who split the sutra into different ones is the vritti. Vritti is people who are doing Vyakhyana for the sutras. They will say, based on the prayoga, based on the meaning, based on the Guru Parampara. There was a live oral tradition, right? Panini, his Shishyas, and so on. So based on all this, they have split the sutras and said this is the sutra and this is the meaning. Now, there are some cases where it is possible what appears as one sutra may be split into two sutras to derive a meaning which justifies the prayoga. Right? Again, so all these techniques, I keep telling, anything we take in Vyakarana, right? We have Bahula Grahanam, we have Yoga Vibhaga, we have some other things. So most of those depend on that elusive thing called Shishta Prayoga, right? Because Vyakarana is expected to follow the Prayoga. So to justify the Prayoga, keeping in mind the Prayoga, we have to look at Shastra in different ways. So one of those ways is called Yoga Vibhaga. What does Yoga Vibhaga mean? It is that a sutra is split into two. That is, we are getting, if you have Hante Rathpurvasya as a single sutra, you have a single meaning for that one sutra, which says if there is nimitta in upasarga, the Hanti Nakara gets Natva if it is preceded by Rasva Akara. A single sutra has a single meaning. Now, by splitting this sutra, it is possible to have two sutras. Right? That is what he says. Hante he is one sutra. Right? There are many sutras which are single words. Right? So, hante he iti sutram. Kaha arthaha? You have anuvritti of upasargat. So, upasargasthat nimittat parasya. Hante he nasya natvam. Okay. So, it is just a vidhi sutra. Even nanyasya is not needed. So, when there is a nimitta in the upasarga, the nakara of hanudhatu gets natva. Right? That is the simple meaning of just hantehe. Atpurvasya is not there. So we are not qualifying the nakara by anything. We are just saying if there is nimitta in the upasarga, then the nakara of hanudhatu gets natva. An example for this sutra is the prahanyat. Right? Now, atpurvasya is a different sutra. Right? Hantehe is one sutra which is doing natva vidhana for nakara. Atpurvasya is a second sutra. Now, what is this? Siddhe sati, we already have a natva for hanudhatu. Siddhe sati arabhyamanaha vidhihi niyamaya bhavati. So, this will be a niyama sutra. Right? So this actually the nanyasya is not required for the previous sutra. It is there for the second one. So this atpurvasya becomes a niyama sutra. What does it say? Hantehe atpurvasyaiva nasyanatvam nanyasya. Hanudhatu, the nakara of hanudhatu gets natva only when it is preceded by a hrasva akara and not anywhere else. There is no restriction of an upasarga here. It is a general niyama which says if the nakara of hanudhatu has to get a natva by any sutra, then it must be preceded by atpurvasya, that is hrasva akara. That is why in praghnanti, that is hanti hataha ghananti, it is not preceded by hrasva akara, therefore it does not get a natva. So the original sutra, the examples or the purpose of original sutra should always be satisfied. You cannot get to a totally different meaning, leaving behind the meaning. So by the original sutra, we had natva for prahanyat. We could prevent natva in praghnanti. Both those are also achieved by splitting the sutra. What is achieved in addition is even in other cases where the nimitta may not be in upasarga, wherever hanti, hanadhato nakara is getting natva, it has to be preceded by akara. That is the niyama which is done by the split sutra, which just says atpurvasya. Hanadhatoho nakarasya natvam bhavati chet atpurvasyaiva bhavati anyasya na bhavati. Tarhi kim bhavati vritraghnaha ityatra atpurvaha nasti. It is a nakara of hanadhatu. It is not preceded by hrasva akara. Therefore, there is no natva even by pratiparikanta num vibhaktishu cha. That is what Kaumudi says. So he gives the two split sutra. Then he says yoga vibhaga samarthyat. Because of the power of splitting the sutra. What is the purpose of splitting the sutra? The niyama anantarasya vidhirva bhavati pratishedhova is a general nyaya which says you have said hantehe. Immediately if you put an atpurvasya as a niyama, this niyama applies to the previous sutra only, anantara, that is the immediately previous sutra, which is the upasargastha nimittat parasya hantehe nasya natvam. Then the niyama is only when atpurva is the general case. But because we are splitting the sutra, that meaning, if we wanted this atpurvasya to apply only for the context of upasarga, we can do that even with a single sutra. So, yoga vibhaga samarthyat anantarasya vidhirva bhavati pratishedhova iti nyayam badhitva ekajuttara pade iti natvam api nivartyate. It also applies to all other things, right? Why he says ekajuttara pade is a different this. So whether it is ekajuttara pade, whether it is pratiparikantanum vibhaktishu cha or hantehe, any natva for nakara of hanadhatu applies only when it is preceded by hrasva akara. Vritraghnaha, vritraghna ityadi. And he very specifically refutes Madhava. Yattu vritraghnaha ityadau vaikalpikam natvam madhavena uktam tad bhashya vartika viruddham. So it is not that Dikshita did not know Madhaviya Dhatu Vritti. He says that is wrong. It is against Bhashya, against Vartika. There is no Vaikalpika Natva. Therefore, the only form is Vritraghnaha. So we have two Matabheda here, okay, between what Madhava says and what Dikshita says. So there's a very good question. Why is there a conflict when Prayoga Sharanaha, Vayyakaranaha? It is exactly the problem. There is a lot of prayoga which we don't find these days, right? So there is one vakya in the Mahabhashya, first Anhika, where he says how much of literature was there at the time of Mahabhashya, 2000 years ago. He gives a long list. Okay, Ayurveda, the literature, the Chaturveda, Vedanga, etc., etc. The amount of prayoga we have, though it appears enormous to us. We always say that the Samskrita Vangmaya is Ananta, but actually what we have is very less, right? We have lost a lot through, destroyed manuscripts, through invasions, because it was a predominantly oral tradition. There are so many reasons that we have lost a lot of it, that today it is difficult to find a definitive evidence from Prayoga for everything. Though when the Bhashya was there or Sutra was there, definitely there were Prayogas. We see that, we see the Ullekha. But today we don't find a direct Prayoga. Right? If you find an example for Vritraghnaha with Natva, the whole of Bhattoji Dikshita's argument will fall down. Right? If we are able to find Shishta Prayoga, that to not one, maybe a couple where there is a Pramanika Prayoga, then there is no argument for Bhattoji Dikshita. Problem is that we don't find a Prayoga, so will that be there or not? We are trying to do a theoretical analysis of what it should be, right? So the thing is, the sutras were built on Prayoga. When the Prayoga is lost, all we have is the sutra. We have to decide only based on the sutra on what should the Prayoga have been. Right? So it is in those cases that we have all these matabhedas. If there is a direct prayoga evidence, this is not there. Right? So Bhattaji Dikshita thinks since he has not found any prayoga for natva, it need not be there. So he has come up with an explanation for it. Why Madhava said to give an option? Was he going only by the sutra to say it should be optional, or did he have a prayoga in mind? We don't know. So it's not always black and white, even within this. येनाक्षर समाम्नाय अधिगम्य महेश्वरात् कृत्स्नं व्याकरणं प्रोक्तं तस्मै पाणिनये नमः. वाक्यकारं वररुचिं भाष्यकारं पतञ्जलिं पाणिनिं सूत्रकारं च प्रणतोऽस्मि मुनित्रयम्. नत्वा सरस्वतीं देवीं शुद्धां गुण्यां करोम्यहं पाणिनीयप्रवेशाय लघुसिद्धान्तकौमुदीम्. धन्यवादाः.